Hey everybody, hello. It's Friend Friday. Woo! I'm super excited to be here with a friend of mine who I'm gonna kind of let her introduce herself, but she's just like her energy is so incredible. You're gonna love her. We met about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and she's just been, I don't know, there's just something really magical about her that you guys are gonna get to see. Her name is Jocelyn, and I had never met a book coach before I met her. So I'm gonna bring her on board. And when you if you have any questions while we're talking, go ahead and pop them in. I'm gonna pop her in, and then we kick it. Boom, there she is. It's
Yeah, hi.
Jocelyn. Wait, I have a fancy thing where I can put your name on the screen. Hold on.
Ooh.
Shaboom. There you go.
Oh, that's very fancy.
That's so fancy. You know, I like
I
to be
feel
a little
very
bit
fancy.
extra. Yeah. So, everybody, this is Jocelyn. Jocelyn,
Hi,
welcome,
everybody.
welcome, welcome to Friend Fridays, where I get to bring on all the cool kids on and just hang out. You never know what you're going to expect here. So, everyone who's watching, I already let Jocelyn know, like, there's no rules here, so she can cuss all she wants to. If she has a cocktail, I mean, it's all good here. So,
I'm really boring. I have a big thing of water.
I mean, I have an actual bottle of water, so I'm not very exciting today. Well, welcome, Jocelyn. Thanks for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about you. What's a book coach do?
I'm a book coach. I help writers, authors roll up their sleeves, stop telling themselves all the bullshit excuses they tell themselves about not being able to get their books done. And then I help them get their book finished and get it ready to go out into the world and be published and read by all kinds of readers.
You know, I am one of those people who am like, oh my gosh, I started writing this book 1,000 years ago, and dot. And so it was so interesting when we first met one another, that you were a book coach, that you help people get over that dot. That's really exciting, and I will let everybody know I did send Jocelyn like words that I've never shared with anyone before. And I just was like, you know what? Here you go. I'm going to send this to you. And I've never asked her what she thought about it. I feel like if she hated it, she probably wouldn't tell me. But it was just really interesting and exciting to know that there's like people out there who like just are reading stories like you've shared with me some exciting like types of work, types of book that people that you work with are writing. And like, how freaking cool is that you get to just like talk about incredible stories all day?
It's the best job ever. I couldn't have dreamed of anything more like wonderful and perfect than to spend my days helping authors and working with stories. And um, I I am just like thrilled to be doing what I'm doing. I love my clients. I love their stories. It's one of those things where it's just like I have absolutely found my perfect fit.
Yeah.
It took a long time, and this is not where I started. So,
Right. Um, so I would say, well, before I ask you a question, I'm going to just say to folks joining us, sometimes this app that I'm on can be a little bit weird. So sometimes Facebook doesn't love the fact that we're not just streaming to Facebook. So I can't always see everyone's name over there. Someone said, hi, ladies. I can't tell who it is, but hey. So if you have a question, I'd love for you to just put your name in first in case Facebook doesn't want to share your name with us. But we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So my question for you, Jocelyn, is, this week specifically here, on this channel, we've been well, I let me back up. The last 2 weeks, we've been going through like this journey of the major arcana
Mhm.
and the tarot cards. And for me, it is all about us moving through and learning all of these lessons throughout that we need to learn throughout our lives. And so they're like little stories, right? They're little stories, they're little adventures almost. I used to love those choose your own adventure books.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Um, but it's so interesting how, all of our stories obviously are a little bit different. And this week specifically, we've been focusing on the Empress, the Emperor, and the Hierophant. And so that is really kind of the epitome of learning about feminine energy, learning about masculine energy, and then learning about spiritual energy in a kind of structured way, in a way of like kind of handing down, if you will, spirituality, not necessarily religion, sometimes religion. But so I thought about you, of course, in this idea of passing down knowledge through stories, through books. And then I noticed that you have been doing these videos on IG, which I will admit I have sort of been avoiding IG because I don't really know how it works, but you've inspired me. But you shared a little bit of a family story about some things that in your office that are inspirational, that have been handed down. And so I'm wondering if you can just kind of share with folks a little bit about, this idea of passing down, passing along these lessons, these stories, these and really the importance of what that is in our society. I mean, even if people aren't reading paperback books anymore, like we're reading stories continuously. So I'd love kind of just your take on that.
Oh wow, I could talk forever. I love I this is one of my passionate topics about stories. And um as humans, as the human animal, we are stories. We are story collectors, we are storytellers. Our whole lives are stories. Everything we do, I absolutely believe and am passionate about, is a story. How we talk to other people, how we present ourselves. And it goes so far beyond books and television and movies. And I think it's one of the reasons we are so called to those mediums, because we are story. We are the embodiment of story. And the lives we live, the stories that we create out of our own lives are the legacy. Our memories then become the stories. And whether you have children, whether you've written a book, your life is your story. That is what you pass down. And I was talking on IG about my desk, which is my grandfather had built this table, and it was our dining room table when I was growing up. And I never met my grandfather. And so I
Okay.
now have all of these stories about this table that I have created that may
Mhm.
have nothing to do with his creation of the table. So
Right.
in my own mind, I'm generating stories and creating and consuming stories um, that are connected to pieces of wood that are 100 years old. And so I believe very firmly that we are stories. We are
Yeah.
walking, talking, experiencing. We are stories. There, you can't help but be a part of a story. And when we connect with each other and tell each other the stories of our lives, we're bringing people into that story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that idea. I mean, um I don't have a lot of connection, if you will, kind of to my past and to, family members. There aren't I didn't come from a family that kind of collected things and so I don't have a lot of those pieces. So I always love to hear stories of, things that have been handed down and passed along. And I think for me also, when you were talking about the desk, when I watched your IG video, I also obviously talk a lot about energy and how, everything
Mhm.
is energy. Everything, is made from energy, whether it looks like it or not, right? And I
Right.
thought about that table and just, I mean, you talk about the stories, right? But just even the untold stories, right? Even the
Mhm.
energy that has been received from that, into that table, and that you are able to kind of carry on now. And it just seems so incredible that, you're able to connect with that every single day as you're writing, as you're helping people. And yeah, I just really love that idea.
Well, and I'm definitely a collector of stories. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see, I don't know how you can see all the books in the background. So I'm not sure which hand points where. You can see all the books in the background. So I definitely collect story in the book format, but I
Hmm.
also collect story in like the painting over. I there
Yeah.
that painting is a friend of mine painted, and
Okay.
I feel connected to her through the story of that painting.
Yeah.
And my garden is full of plants that I have received from other people. And so there's stories connected to those plants.
Right.
And, it's a scarf that somebody gives me. It's and I can be, and when we're dead, the people left behind get to make the stories up. And and I don't know necessarily. I know the stories of my desk that are my of the table that were the dining room table as a child. I don't know where the table was before that. I mean, I know
Right.
my grandfather made it, but I may not have liked my grandfather, but I get to make the story up that he made it, and he gave us a place to create stories and to build our stories around. And that just seems so powerful to me, to find the ways to connect in stories to people that we aren't necessarily geographically close to, or time continuum close to, or even on the same plane anymore,
Right.
or whatever. It's like I said, it's that legacy, that story just keeps going.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, now where we find ourselves, right? Well, let me also say, hey Wanda. Hi Vinny, even though Vinny's saying hi to Wanda, but it's okay. I'll say hi to you too. Um, but even, as I think now about, where we are and not being able to be close to people, and,
Mhm.
not sharing holidays and things like that, in person with people, but still, the lessons that are so important for us to carry
Mhm.
on and move forward, and creating, in some way, creating something that is your legacy, that can continue after you, so that when people give their version of the story, there's a little piece of you in it, right? Regardless of what they want to add on to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're a part of my story.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, being here, people who are here who are watching are a part of my story.
Hmm.
My clients that I work with are a part of my story. I
Right.
I try very hard to keep that connection, and especially as you say, at a time when there's not that physical connection, and it's very easy to think and believe that that connection's not there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and kind of lose faith in it,
Right.
that it's ever going to come back. And I think that's, really, really important. So let me back up slightly and just, again, to kind of tie this back to, our themes of this week. So the first energy, and, maybe Jocelyn, you can tell me a little bit about how these things might connect for you. So again, the first energy were introduced to this week, was the Empress. So she is, I can split the screen, but I feel like it's going to be, wait, let me get real fancy on you for a second. Shabu, oh, see, I really can't without moving you out of the way. Wait, you know what? I can move me out of the way.
Oh,
Bam!
that's fancy.
I am the fanciest. That's what you love about me.
Oh yeah.
So the Empress is, again, she's kind of the embodiment of femininity. She is the energy that is the creator, right? She teaches us about like birthing not just people but birthing things into existence, right? She is that energy of nurturing, of mothering. And I use the term she in this description, but obviously it's not a matter of you know male, female, gender, but just that receptive energy, right? So, I talk probably way too often because I feel like I reference this constantly, but this idea of, feminine energy is receptive, is receiving, right? As women, we tend to be the ones who are embracing and nurturing and, oh, put your head in my bosom type of thing, right? That's my Ian Levizant, like, oh, he needs some bosom. I think she's got some other things going on there, um, but that's what the Empress energy is. And as we move through our journey of life lessons, we learn that not only is it important to find opportunities to create and to nurture, just like we're talking about these stories here, but also to see that and help grow that in other people,
Mhm.
right? Um, so that's kind of the Empress energy. We also then met, and you're welcome to interject anything that shows up. Sorry, I have a lot of bells and whistles. So um,
Oh,
then we talked about let's see, shabam. Then we talked about the Emperor energy, and the Emperor is, the Empress's counterpart, right? In that it represents the masculine energy. It represents the projective, right? So it's not so much about pulling in and nurturing. It's more about creating rules and finding ways to move us forward, right? And switch back to me. And that energy, neither is better or worse, right? We all have that feminine, masculine energy within us. Um, and so just of those two cards in particular, I'd love to hear, as far as the stories, maybe, some of the folks that you're working with or whatever, but just um, that balance, right? Finding that balance between that feminine and masculine, that creating like birthing into the world things versus creating structures for those things that are birthed into the world.
mhm. Um, oh, I have so many thoughts after you've talked about that and all that energy. And I'm just kind of riffing here from what
Yeah.
you've said, and based on some of my own thoughts that I've had. I think a lot of times as writers, we tend towards the male, the rules, the what do I need to do to get this perfect on the page? What are the rules I need to follow? What are the guidelines I need to follow? What are, so that we feel like we're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody else has forged that path before us, we look to those guidelines and to those rules. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. There are some things that it's worth knowing, but I think that feminine energy, especially as the nurturer, is to nurture the creativity just as equally without all of the rigidity of the rules.
Yeah.
And you need both of them I call them, it's funny, I call them your book baby. You need both of them to make the book baby to create. You need both of those energies
Right.
to create. But I think we become very imbalanced as creators because we're looking for the right way. We're looking
Right.
for Whether we're creating a product that we want to sell, we want to create the right book that will sell. We want to create, the right book that people are going to love. And I think it's trying to keep those two energies in balance. And that's really hard with a lot of writers who go down. I have clients who have gone down that really rigid path and
Mhm.
gotten broken, and
Yeah.
they're now like in recovery because
Yeah.
they're trying to get out of that stasis or the rigidity of all of those rules. And it's trying to find a way to get them back into that creative, nurturing energy. I never thought of it like the tarot cards, but when you're talking
Mhm.
about the energy, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I've got clients who get stuck, and they mostly get stuck on that masculine side.
Yeah, yeah. That's the magic of tarot. That's, I mean, and I've said before, like I would have never imagined that I would be here today, like trying to equate tarot cards to like life lessons. But I have found that they really like the whole system, because it's a system of tarot. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like the oracle cards, where they're oracle cards I see as more of like the cheerleader cards, right? They like make you feel good about stuff. But really the system, the lessons, the cycle that we go through, we don't learn our lessons in a, 1, 2, 3, 4 right way throughout our lives. But there are some core lessons that we all run up against, we all meet, whether we like them or not. There are some core things that, we all have to really deal with. We all, and I think when we can label them, right, when we can create a way to say, like, okay, just to your point, like, oh, yes, that's a great way to think about it. It is this masculine energy that you're stuck on. Or for me, I'm often kind of the opposite. I'm a very, I've become much more of a free spirited, kind of creative, like, let me just love on you and bring in, that I do have to remember, like, okay, it's cute that you want to do all these things, but can you like make a plan?
Right, right.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It is just as important.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll show the last one that we talked about today, and that is the Hierophant, which I'm gonna
The
scooch up.
artwork on these are beautiful.
I love this deck. It's really quite diverse. I've really been on the hunt these last couple of years to find kind of diverse decks, and so and I'll talk a little bit more about the symbology, which is really the important piece. But the Hierophant in our journey is the point in which we meet not just spiritual energy. So last week we talked about the High Priestess. She is our connection to intuition. So as we meet the Hierophant is much more of this energy of creating some structure, some form, again, kind of something that can be passed down between us and, you know, whatever we believe in that is bigger than us, whether that's higher power, whether that's, I'll switch back to me, whether that's, God, goddess, the universe, whatever, that thing which is bigger than you. It's really about that creating pathways that you can, maybe a practice that you really can make sure that, it's not just like a passing thought, you know.
Mhm.
And, to some people, it is religion. It is a structured, organized religion that they, feel comfortable in having that structure and having that kind of guidance that they see. I know growing up myself, I did grow up in a Baptist community. And, for many years, even though I didn't necessarily believe the religious piece of it, I really missed having that community that came with that structured religion.
Right, right.
And so, the Hierophant is much more about us making sure, I'd say, creating that practice, making sure that we are connecting with our spiritual selves. And, I think the Hierophant in many ways is kind of one of the trickier cards in the deck for me, because so many people have so many different experiences with, organized religion, and spirituality, or, I don't believe any of those things. And it brings me back to this energy, right? The energy
Mhm.
that is imbued in your desk, that is imbued in the stories that, we're able to share with one another. And I really, I really want people to kind of get that, regardless of, faith, right?
Right,
That there is this connection that we all have to one another,
right,
that we can pass along in stories, that we and in material objects. But whether we think we're having a connection or an impact on other people or not, we are,
right. Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. And you may not know, you may never know, and you may not know for a really long time that connection that your story had.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find there are people in my life who I wish were still alive that I could go back and ask,
Yeah.
because if my story has changed as I get older, I want to connect in. Now, to me, their energy is still with me. They're still
Hmm.
participating in my story, but I want to
Hmm.
go back and bring them forward and say, okay,
Right.
now I want your wisdom in my story.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
and I think that's where the beauty of something that a book comes in,
Hmm.
because you really are. It's the one medium where you really are getting the mind of the creator.
Hmm.
A
Yeah.
movie you're watching, written words on a page, especially with a book, you're connecting in a way with that creator at that time that that book was written, or in that moment that that book was written,
Hmm.
that you're having a conversation with the writer.
Right. Yeah.
And like, I can't have a conversation. I'm not having the same conversation with my desk that I do have with a book.
Right. Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
energy is pretty much one direction at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that even, being in that space, right? I mean, all the things that we can look to the past that we see in physical form,
Yes.
is inspiring us, and that is part of that
Yes.
connection, part of, that global community, I guess, that I really, and I'm not going to go into politics, because I know you more than most. Like, we could make this show like 17 hours long. Um, so I'm not even gonna go
I'm
there.
behaving.
Listen, no, there's no behaving here. And that's why. But I just think in general, right? This, we're in a space in time right now where, it's so important that we remember that connection,
Mhm.
right? And it's not about agreeing with people or not agreeing with people, or liking our choices or not. There's a lot of shit out there. A lot of people that I don't agree with, and I think they're crazy about a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I'm still connected to them, right?
Right.
And so it behooves me to not shut off a part of who I am by extension, um, unless it's really unsafe, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that people should be around like total assholes, and you absolutely should not. But when you say goodbye to them, you should recognize that though they may be gone, they still are part of the story.
That story is still there.
Yeah.
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 I mean that, and exactly what you say. There are a lot of stories out there right now that I want nothing to do with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories out there that are extremely damaging and destructive.
Yeah.
Those stories are still pages in my story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and it's, yeah, it gets very complicated when you start dealing with the stories that are put on us, the stories we don't want to be a part of.
Hmm.
How do we reconcile those stories?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, we're not going to solve the issue, Jocelyn and I, here
No.
today. I mean, behind
No.
closed doors, we have all this shit figured out.
Yeah.
Just FYI. but
Yeah.
we can't share it with you all because, then what would we have left?
Yeah.
I will say I'm a little disappointed that I haven't seen any cats.
I know where
I
I she Lucy is my video cat. I don't know
uh,
where she is. They actually should be showing up because this is about the time they start reminding me they need to be fed because
yeah,
they're starving to death.
right. Love it. Love it. Well, I do want to ask you just how can people connect with you? How can they reach out to you? How how do they get to just be around your magic a little bit more? Even if they're not ready to write a book right now, right? Everybody's not ready to write a book,
No.
but you are a person that everyone should want to be around. So how can they make that happen?
The easiest way to find me is at my website, which is www.jocelyn, Jocelyn, Lindsay, Lindsay.
Boom, is it that website?
Oh,
What?
fancy.
What?
Oh, you're so fancy.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. I know,
and
kill
then
myself.
from there, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You can come join me with all my ridiculousness on my live as I learn to go live on Instagram.
No. Listen, I'm gonna have to follow your example because I mean I love Facebook. This is kind of my comfort zone here. But I actually have just recently received like the IG 101, like this is how to use Instagram for dummies,
Yeah.
from my spectacular VA Janelle, who's here. I haven't opened it yet, but it's on my hit list because I mean, yeah,
Well, it should be because back to stories really quickly. I think the thing that I try really hard to do, and anybody who wants to connect with me, whether you're writing a book or not, don't worry about it. I try very hard to keep opening and expanding and getting more story and learning more stories through connections,
yeah.
even when I'm totally ridiculous on Instagram looking
She's
silly
not
doing it.
she's not
Because
ridiculous at all.
it's just how do you keep that energy going? How do you keep expanding the universe and your story?
Yeah,
And that's something I mean, spirituality, that's what I believe in. How do you keep opening? How do you keep growing? How do you
yeah.
keep going on?
Yeah, yeah. And that's where Friend Friday came from, right?
Yeah.
It's just like there's some amazing people that I know. There's going to be future people that I meet that other people need to know about. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah,
We are all connected. There's not a person I've ever met that I can't make a connection to in some way or another. So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I love that about the network,
Hmm.
the being online in the internet.
Yeah.
You have this, and I'm thinking about your three cards this week and how that relates to the connectivity that we have this large global connection that we didn't have 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
We are connecting in ways we've never connected before. And I just think it's so important that we keep sharing our stories.
Yeah, yeah, agreed, agreed. And we're going to continue the journey through the major arcana this week in our Wednesday Woo at 2. So if you're not in the WTF group, make sure that you're over there. Maybe Jocelyn will again make an appearance over there in some way, shape, or form. Would be awesome. But yeah, thank you so much, Jocelyn. I'm just really excited that we got to just hang out today and that
Yeah, thank
some
you.
some folks got to meet you, and maybe next time we'll see the cats. That would be spectacular.
I know, I
Um,
feel deprived.
how do you think I feel? In my description of you in my email list, I will say I also mentioned that you are a part-time dinosaur dancer. So
Unicorn,
maybe,
actually, that's a unicorn
oh
dancer.
my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm
That's
so sorry.
okay.
Was your husband a dinosaur?
We
Is
were
it all unicorns?
we're
I
both
don't know.
unicorns.
People are going to be like, what the fuck? Yeah.
What is
So,
happening, crazy lady?
all the more reason for you to find Jocelyn and just reminisce through her timelines. It's worth it, trust me. But maybe in the future, we will get a dancing unicorn appearance coming
Yeah.
through. Would be spectacular. So thank you again, Jocelyn. And if anyone needs help writing a book, go to jocelynlindsay.com. If you just want to hang out and, with one of the cool kids, Jocelyn's the person to do it with. So thanks for being here. Next week, next week, um, I've never done like any Black Friday type of thing, but I was just inspired since I'll be home for Thanksgiving. So, sad story. I won't be with my babies this year, but instead, next Friday is going to be our card party. So, all of my friends, if you have any questions, going to pull some cards for you. We will be. My friend next week is all of you for the card party. So that will be happening. There's also going to be um, some Black Friday deals going on next week that you'll have to wait until Thursday to hear about. But make sure that you come back, and we'll see you all next week. Have a spectacular weekend, everybody, and stay magical.
Bye. Thank you so much.